Okay, we're sort of back.
The man is Heinrich Kramer, and he is writing the most blood-soaked book of the 15th century, the Malleus Maleficarum, the Witch's Hammer, a book that would torment the world for a century after its release and be responsible for the torture and death of 70,000 innocent people.
Treating of three necessary concomitants of witchcraft, which are the devil, a witch, and the permission of Almighty God.
He goes on to say that female empowerment would bring on the apocalypse. He even made the title of the book, Female, to hammer home his point. Malleus Maleficarum is a hammer used only on women.
So, we must find the mark. Aye. We must find the mark.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude, located not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts, he's somewhere in the house. I think maybe he's on my bed. Lord Squeakington is lurking around outside somewhere. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cats. Get over it. And this is a Hex and Hammer episode where Skullbeard and I read from the Medieval Witch Hunting Manual. Next episode will be a news episode of some sort. Alright, I'm sure you're all wondering what caused me to have to put the show on hold with no warning. Well, the answer is that I was talking to my mom on the phone and she was saying that she was planning on coming for a visit very soon, which meant that I had to get the Fortress of Squalitude cleaned up. That was before, however, my mom took a nasty fall. A week or so after I talked to my mom, she was walking into her garage to get something, and the next thing she knew, she was picking herself up off the floor. She also had a very nasty black eye. I wish I could say that this was the worst of it, but it wasn't. She's effectively blind in that eye, and so far, the doctors haven't been able to find out why. She still has a few more appointments to try and figure out what's going on. Mom's 93 and maybe in good health. I say maybe because she's mentioned to me in the past that she had some kind of exam and the doctors found a spot on her lung. She was supposed to have further tests done, but she's been cagey about if she's had them and what the results were if she did have those tests. There are a couple of worries with all of this. One is that you can apparently be asymptomatic with lung cancer until you have a moment where you just blank out. And unless the docs know what they're looking for, they'll miss that you have lung cancer. Does that apply to my mom? I don't know. It could also indicate that my mom had some kind of stroke. Equally concerning is that even mild head trauma in the elderly can lead to rapid onset dementia, according to recent studies. So far, in conversations with my mom, she seems to be just fine mentally. One of my brothers has visited her since that accident, and he has said nothing to me to indicate that she's got any cognitive problems, and he would have said something to me. Now, for some of the other things that have been happening around here, my landlord decided that he was going to reroute the water lines that go to all the trailers. Awfully nice of him, of course, but it did mean that I suddenly found myself without water some days while he was working on it. And when I say suddenly, I mean I get up and there's no water. There's not even a valve underneath the trailer for me to cut the water on and off. But his goal in rerouting water lines was to make them less susceptible to breaking in cold weather, so good on him. Um, and he also complained about the grapevine that was covering half my deck. So I had to chop it down. Mind you, I'd already planned to do that because the vine wasn't growing the way I wanted it to. I'd hoped that it'd grow up the side of the deck and over the roof because it's on the side of the trailer that gets the most direct sunlight and would help to keep the trailer cooler in the summer. Unfortunately, that's not quite what happened. It did grow up the side of the deck. It also grew across the deck, under the deck, around my grills, over the clothes line, and around just about everything else. It was like fucking kudzu. One moment, it was barely noticeable. The next moment, it's covering everything in sight. And I had even trimmed the thing back a couple of times during the summer. So I had to take care of that. Still haven't gotten all of it chopped down, but I have gotten rid of most of it. I also had a minor adventure this week. Friday, I'm zipping along to work, my usual route, and I see that there's a food truck someplace I haven't seen a food truck parked before. And then I notice it has a map of Vietnam on it. And I'm like, oh, Vietnamese food, Vietnamese food. Fortunately, I'm running late, so I can't stop to get anything because I know if I stop and get something, unless it's, they hand me the food right after I place my order, I run the risk of being late to work. So I'm like, I haven't seen this truck around. I can't imagine they're going to stay here because I can't imagine Vietnamese food's going to be all that popular in this town. We have 3 Chinese restaurants and 2 Japanese restaurants, 1 Korean restaurant, but like a dozen family-owned Latino restaurants. And I'm not bagging on any nation's cuisine. It's just that when it comes to Vietnamese food or Asian food, we don't have a lot here. We've got some kind of Vietnamese restaurant that opened up. I haven't been there yet, and it's part of a chain, so I don't know. One of the Japanese restaurants I think is a chain. I don't know about the Korean restaurant, but none of the Mexican restaurants are chain restaurants. They're all, they might be a regional chain in the sense that, like, whoever owns them owns 3 others in the state, but there's no other restaurants associated with them outside the state. And we don't have a Thai restaurant or a Laotian restaurant. We don't have significant members of those nationalities here. When I grew up, when I was living in Murfreesboro, we didn't have Laotian restaurants, but we had Thai restaurants and, Chinese and Japanese. And the thing about that I really miss some of the Thai food. We don't have, like I said, in this town, Thai food. If I want that, I basically got to go to Nashville. Not gonna happen. So, I was like, it's Vietnamese food. I want to support these folks, so I don't know if they're going to be there tomorrow or what. So I stopped the bike, took a picture of the place, made sure I got the name of the truck, and then zipped on to work. And when I got home, I looked up the name. Sure enough, the food truck moves from place to place. And it turned out yesterday they were going to be somewhere very close to the house. So, even though I wasn't feeling well, I hopped on ye old bike and zipped over there yesterday. And it the most of the people work that there was like 4 or 5 or more folks working in the food truck. Most of them were late teens, early 20s. There was a couple of folks in there who were probably close to my age. I know I've mentioned in the past that in the early 90s, mid to late 90s, I was dating a gal from Vietnam, so in theory I might know some of those people. In reality, most of the people in there working in there would be kids of whomever, of any of the friends that girlfriend might have had, and I didn't recognize the couple of folks who were close to my age, but they were all folks who were Vietnamese speakers first, English second. The kids' English was fine, but I could tell just by hearing them talk with the others that they were fluent in Vietnamese. I don't remember any of the Vietnamese I learned, but I can identify, as somebody speaking fluently in that language. So they, one of the things that they have done is they have westernized some of the names of stuff. And, like they called them egg rolls, even though they're technically spring rolls. They did not call it a banh mi. They called it a Vietnamese sandwich, and there were a few other things like that. And I was, so when I rolled up, and saw the folks look at, behind the, working the truck, when I saw Vietnamese sandwich, I was like, oh, that's a banh mi, and that's what I want. And so I ordered it saying banh mi, and the gal who was taking the orders just lit the fuck up. I mean, she just, banh mi. She was really excited that I knew the proper term for it other than Vietnamese sandwich. Or, and I was happy to have made her day as much as all of them made my day by having a Vietnamese food truck in this backwater place. And yes, I ate the sandwich. It was tasty. It was as good as I remembered. The spring rolls were fine. They were good. So I will be going back and spending lots of money there and probably getting fatter than I already am because I really like Asian food. And it's nice to be able to get that, since our options for Asian food are fairly limited in this town. Finally, the big news is I've been adopted by a kitten and need name suggestions. It's male, and I don't know how old, but it's roughly half the size of Fuzznut, so certainly a couple of months old. It's one of the ferals that hangs out in the trailer park, and it just kept getting underfoot when I was trying to go inside or leave. And then it made its way inside, and I was like, fuck it. I won't have, if it's an inside cat, I won't be stepping on it or fighting it when I'm trying to get in or out. I wasn't sure that Fuzznuts would get along with the kitten. And while he hasn't taken it to the same way he did Buttons and Buddha, he's also not attacked it. There's been some hissing and puffy tails on both sides, but no fights. Hopefully, the two of them will become friends. For right now, when I'm not home, I'm keeping the kitten locked up in my room with food and water and letting him roam the house when I'm home and awake, so if there's any problems between him and Fuzznuts, I can stop it before too much blood is spilled. I'll have pics of the kitten in the show notes. One final note. I'm afraid my posting schedule for episodes is going to continue to be a bit irregular simply because I'm not sure what's going on with my mother. And I still got to get shit taken care of around this place, as I'm sure you can understand. All right, now let's get to Skullbeard and I've reading from Hexenhammer. It's been so long since we recorded this, I have no fucking clue as to what happens. But it's not terrible, I know that.
So, part 1, part 2, question 2, chapter 3?
Yep.
Lovely. Remedies prescribed for those who are bewitched by being inflamed with inordinate love or extraordinary hatred. Huh. Maybe I'm cursed by a witch. Maybe that's why I think Jeff's an idiot.
Okay, give me just a second.
Take your time. I got a nice short paragraph to get started.
Yeah. Facebook friend is having an ant problem, and it's like, oh, I know the perfect thing for it, and it's safe for the cats. So.
Oh. Borax and icing sugar?
More or less. I mean, it's a commercial product that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's designed so the cats can't get into it. Nothing but ants or other bugs can get into it to get to the stuff. And
yep.
Oh, one other thing. Not that this is necessarily something that you would normally listen to, but have you ever listened to the My History Can Beat Up Your Politics podcast?
No, I have not.
I've had the host of it, Bruce Carlson, on as a guest a couple of times.
Nice.
Once in 2016, 2017, I think. No, it was 2016. And then in late April, early May of this year, I had him on. But he just put out an episode, not last week, but the week before. And he had the guy on Twitter who does 100 Years Ago Today.
Oh, nice.
And they were talking about, the U.S. in 1924. And the thing that they mentioned was that in 1924, the Republican convention was in Cleveland.
Okay.
The 2016 Republican convention was in Cleveland. And that's where we got Trump.
Uh-huh.
And in 1924, the Republicans were debating whether or not they should come out against the Klan, and they opted not to. And it's sort of like, wow, maybe the Republicans shouldn't have their conventions in Cleveland because they get all racist.
Mm-hmm. And I hear the DNC was in the same venue as the RNC a couple of weeks ago, and it was packed. And everybody's popping positive for COVID on the way home.
Yeah. Well, they had a special watch party where the RNC convention was. The DNC did, and that was packed, whereas the RNC convention was barely anybody there.
Yep. Nice. Very, very nice.
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic that we will club the Republicans like a baby harp seal.
Yep.
Which is what they need.
Yeah. I'd say beat some sense into them, but whatever.
Well,
I'm not going to promise to pay their legal bills, though.
No, if we can crush them for a few years and Harris does the right things, we'll be fine.
Hey, you just got to wait for one orange fuck to die. I mean,
oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Was that a knock?
No, I'm hearing a weird beeping sound from outside. I need to investigate.
All right.
Give me a sec.
Yeah, no worries. So?
Some asshole's car alarm.
Nice. I hate those fucking things.
Yeah. There's an old Saturday Night Live sketch where dude builds a sound-activated laser thing that when somebody's car alarm goes off, it pivots and zaps the car with the laser blowing it up.
Nice. That would be... Huh. Okay, yeah. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, you and me both. I'd share you the video with you, but Amazon or NBC has it region locked on YouTube, so you can't view it in Canada.
Oh.
Because reasons.
Yeah. They're funny that way.
Yeah. All right, let's do this thing.
Just as the generative faculty can be bewitched, so can inordinate love or hatred be caused by the human mind. First, we shall consider the cause of this, and then, as far as possible, the remedies.
Filio-caption, I guess that's how it's pronounced.
Philocaption?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Or inordinate love of one person for another can be caused in three ways. Sometimes it is merely due to a lack of control over the eyes, sometimes to the temptation of devils, sometimes to the spells of necromancers and witches with the help of devils. And modern psychology says,
nope.
If you've got that, you've probably been raised by a narcissistic parent.
Mm-hmm. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
The first is spoken of in St. James 1:14-15. Every man is tempted by his own concupiscence. We've had that word before. Every man is tempted by his own concupiscence, being drawn away and allured. Then, when concupiscence hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, but sin, when it is completed, begetteth death. And so, when Shechem saw Dinah going out to see the daughters of the land, he loved her, and he ravished her, and lay with her, and his soul clave unto her. Genesis 34. And here the gloss says that this happened to an infirm spirit because she left her own concern to inquire into those of other people, and such a soul is seduced by bad habits and is led to consent to unlawful practices. You saying she had it coming?
I don't know.
That doesn't sound good, and it seems like really fuzzy logic.
Yeah. And you will not be surprised at all. But the only reference that I can find to Philocaption all refers back to
the Hexenhammer?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Circular.
Yep. I mean, there's a couple of other things that it might be, but it's no. But if it's anything other than referring to the term in Hexenhammer, it's the explanation is paywalled, so no fucking way I can look at that.
Yeah, no.
And hang on a second. Just on the mic. There we go. The second cause arises from the temptation of devils. In this way, Ammon loved his beautiful sister Tamar.
Do I need to bust out my wah pedal?
Well, you know what they say.
Mm-hmm. Keep it in the
Can't
family.
keep it in your pants. Yeah, keep it in the family, and the closer the kin, the deeper it goes in.
Oh, Jesus.
Dude. Where do I live? Where do I live? And was so vexed that he fell sick for love of her. 2 Samuel 13. For he could not have been so totally corrupt in his mind as to fall into so great a crime of incest unless he had been grievously tempted by the devil. Okay.
Uh-huh.
The Habsburg family might have some thoughts on this.
Yeah. He had permission from God. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's part of the plan.
The Book of the Holy Fathers refers to this kind of love where it says that even in their hermitages, they were exposed to every temptation, including that of carnal desires. For some of them were at times tempted with the love of women more than it is possible to believe. St. Paul also says,
In 2 Corinthians.
I was debating whether or not I should go there. 12. There was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me. And the gloss explains this as referring to the temptation of lust, but not incest.
Yeah, that was no big deal back then. It was a different time.
Yeah. And yet, the word of the Bible is supposed to be imperfect and eternal.
Well, it is imperfect. Don't think it's eternal. It shouldn't be taken internally, that's for damn sure.
Especially not older versions where they used lead in the ink.
No. But it is said that when a man does not give way to temptation, he does not sin. But it is an exercise for his virtue. But this is to be understood of the temptation of the devil, not of that of the flesh, for this is a venial sin, even if a man does not yield to it. Many examples of this are to be read.
Oh, are we going to read some? No, it doesn't look like it. Damn it. I might have to see if I can find that clip from Blade Runner where the guy where he's in the bar and you hear the guy say, "Watch as she takes her pleasures from the serpent that first corrupted man."
Uh-huh.
As for the third cause by which inordinate love proceeds from devils and witches' works, the possibility of this sort of witchcraft has been exhaustively considered in the questions of the first part. I don't think it has, and I'm not going to go back and check that shit.
Nope.
As to whether the devils, through the agency of witches, can turn the minds of men to inordinate love or hatred. And it was proved by examples which had fallen within our own experience. No, it was not. Indeed, this is the best known and most general form of witchcraft.
Oh.
Now I'm
So their sole purpose in life is love and hate? Just make people irrationally love and hate?
Yeah, and now I'm tempted to splice in either Frank Sinatra singing Witchcraft or Kate Bush singing Love and Anger.
Mm-hmm. But the following question may be asked. Peter has been seized with an inordinate love of this description, but he does not know whether it is due to the first or the second or the third cause. It must be answered that it can be by the work of the devil that hatred is stirred up between married people so as to cause the crime of adultery. Sure it can, buddy. But when a man is so bound in the meshes of carnal lust and desire that he can be made to desist from it by no shame, words, blows, or action, and when a man often puts away his beautiful wife to cleave to the most hideous of women, and when he cannot rest in the night but is so demented that he must go by devious ways to his mistress, and when it is found that those of noblest birth, governors, and other rich men are the most miserably involved in this sin. For this age is dominated by women and was foretold by Saint Hildegard, as Vincent of Beauvais records in the Mirror of History, although he said it would not endure for as long as it already has. And when the world is now full of adultery, especially among the most highly born, when all this is considered, I say, of what use is it to speak of remedies to those who desire no remedy? Nevertheless, for the satisfaction of the pious reader, we will set down briefly some of the remedies for philocaption when it is not due to witchcraft. Wait. So you're telling me if you don't know what form of witchcraft it is, whatever. Then how do you know it was witchcraft? And then what do you do?
Yeah. Give me a minute here. I'm pulling this up because I am moderately familiar with Hildegard von Bingen, that's the Saint Hildegard they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Who she was a really remarkable woman, and it's so bad that she lived in a misogynistic culture that she was forced to that the only way she could function at a fraction of her capabilities was by being a nun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That,
This makes for great podcasting. Clean.
Yeah, I know.
Point.
Well, this will be edited out. Yeah, this doesn't. It just quotes from one of her books. This page that I found, and it doesn't. It doesn't back that up. It according to.
I'm shocked.
I know, and according to this. Basically she says that if you're married, it's like being stitched together. It's not merely a
you.
It's a really deep bonding, and not a casual thing. If you're not familiar with her music, there's lots and lots of recordings of it available. It really has a Mid-Eastern feel to it.
Okay.
But she was a polymath because she did music. She wrote a lot of things. She was an herbalist.
A witch.
You know, yeah.
Did she float?
If she had not been a nun, she absolutely would have been considered a witch. She was also an epileptic because she, as a young girl, she had been kicked in the head by a horse, and after that, she began seeing visions. Well, that's pretty much a sign of epilepsy caused by head trauma. Avicenna, who I have no idea who the fuck that is, mentions 7 remedies which may be used when a man is made physically ill by this sort of love. But they are hardly relevant to our inquiry except insofar as they may be of service to the sickness of the soul. For he says in Book 3 that the root of the sickness may be discovered by feeling the pulse and uttering the name of the object of the patient's love, and then, if the law permits, he may be cured by yielding to nature. Yeah, so you're hot for this chick? We'll go ahead and bang her. Or certain medicines may be applied.
This Avicenna character?
Yeah.
980 to 1037 CE, commonly known in the West as Avicenna. His name is Ibn Sina. He was a preeminent philosopher and physician of the Muslim world, flourishing during the Islamic Golden Age, serving in the courts of various Iranian rulers. He's often described as the father of early modern medicine. His philosophy was of the Muslim peripatetic school, derived from Aristotelianism. So, he's a dude. He said a thing.
Who was probably Muslim.
Very much, yes.
And that's interesting that they say he's considered the father of modern medicine, because that often goes to a guy, I think his name was something like Pericles. Or Pericles.
Pericles
who
was Greek dude, I'm sure.
No. This guy was medieval, and he was an alchemist, and he actually kind of sort of figured out a few things regarding medicine.
Paracelsus,
that
Swiss
might be
physician, alchemist, lay theologian, and philosopher of the German Renaissance. In
sounds like
1493 to 1541. So
sounds. Yep, that's who I'm thinking of. And this guy predates him
by about 400 years,
something like that. Or certain medicines may be applied concerning which he gives instructions. Or, okay, well, it'd be kind of nice. If you gave those instructions, since this is a book about how to, deal with witches, and you're implying that somebody who has unrequited love is bewitched.
Right?
Or the sick man may be turned from his love by lawful remedies, which will cause him to direct his love to a more worthy object. And these would be...
Witches?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Or he may avoid her presence and so distract his mind from her. Of course, you know what they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he is open to correction, he may be Why do I think there's some bondage?
Uh-huh.
He may be admonished and expostulated with, I have no idea what expostulated means, to the effect that such love is the greatest misery.
Oh my goodness. That is a $10
And
word. Express strong disapproval or disagreement. I expostulated with him in vain. That's what I'm going to do on my ride along if it ever happens.
and wow, I mean that sentence really just there's some bondage kind of stuff involved in there.
St. Andrew's
Because
Cross, maybe?
I don't know, or he may be directed to someone who, as far as he may with God's truth, will vilify the body and disposition of his love, and so blacken her character that she may appear to him altogether base and deformed. Oh,
Yeah.
that could be really problematic.
Yeah.
Or finally, he is to be set to arduous duties which may distract his thoughts. Again,
Hard labor.
bondage.
Holy shit. Okay. Indeed, just as the animal nature of man may be cured by such remedies, so may they all be of use in reforming his inner spirit. Let a man obey the law of his intellect. Okay. Where the hell am I? Let him remember. Indeed, just as the animal nature of man may be cursed by such remedies, so may they all be of use in reforming his inner spirit. Let a man obey the law of his intellect rather than that of nature. Let him turn his love to safe pleasures. Let him remember how... Oh my goodness. Let him remember how
Wait. We have to point out that self-abuse was considered as an unsafe pleasure in that period of time. Even though it's the safest form of sex you can have.
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about catching anything.
No, and it's always consensual, and it's with somebody you love, allegedly. It's all good.
I mean, yeah, and back then when they didn't have things like STI tests or antibiotics or antivirals.
Yep. Yeah.
But they did have condoms.
I don't know if they'd have condoms at this time.
Yes, they did. They, in one of the bogs in England, they pulled up this thing from, like the 1100s or so. And it was a strip of like sheepskin, sheep intestine.
Sheep intestine, yes.
And they couldn't figure out what it was for. It was in this strange spiral, and they wrapped it around something, and they're like, oh, it's a condom. Yeah. It's like, when they find the strange object, and they're like, well, it must be from a fertility thing, and it's like, it's a dildo.
Just wait, this gets worse.
Oh.
Let him turn his love to safe pleasures, yes. Let him remember how momentary is the friction of lust and how eternal the punishment. Let him seek his pleasure in that life where joys begin never to end. And let him consider that if he cleaves to this earthly love, that will be his sole reward, but he will lose the bliss of heaven and be condemned to eternal fire. Behold, the 3 irrevocable losses which proceed from inordinate lust.
Okay.
This is better than Fabio and stuff.
Okay. I gotta. Let me. Okay. I had to read these in college. There's 2 books by a woman named Mary Renault.
Okay.
They are modern retellings of the myth of Theseus, only there's no supernatural stuff in the myths.
Okay.
The first book is The King Must Die. That is well worth reading. Because it's about him going to Crete and slaying the Minotaur.
Yep.
The second book is The Bull from the Sea, which is his life after, slaughtering the Minotaur.
Mm-hmm. And saving all those Vestal virgins all for himself.
Yeah. And the only good part in The Bull from the Sea is her recounting, because it's told in the first person. So it's Theseus seeing a woman who is the object of his desire. And it perfectly encapsulates that moment when you see somebody from a distance and you're like, I would nail the fuck out of that if I got the chance. Mm-hmm. And that's what what you're reading reminds me of. And it is basically when in the book, when Theseus sees the woman, and I forget the character because it's been 3+ decades since I read the fucking book.
You mean Phaedra?
And it wasn't that good. The first book was really good. The second one was not. But, he sees her and he's like, I'm going to hit that. And I know it's going to destroy me. And I don't give a goddamn. I am going to ride this bitch all the way down. And honestly, if you have never had a moment like that in your life, you haven't lived. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you should actually go ahead and ride that one all the way down, but if you've never had that moment where you're like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like when I was working in the convenience store, there was this gal. She pulls up, she gets out of her car, and there's nothing extraordinary about her. Like, she's not unusually attractive, or she's not dressed fancy. She's not driving a fancy car. And it's just like, bam! I am rock hard. I have no idea what the hell is going on. I don't know. And, she comes in, just she wants a pack of cigarettes. There's, again, nothing remarkable about her or anything like that. And, of course, I'm perfectly professional. Oh, you need this? Okay, here you go. Your total's this, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think anything more about it until one day I'm there with a female coworker, and that gal pulls up again, and the female coworker looks at me and goes, "Oh, God, you have to wait on her. I'm going to go hide." She gets me so fucking horny.
Yep. Some people got it.
And it's like, and no goddamn clue. It cannot possibly be pheromones because the appeal was there before she ever walked into the place.
Yeah.
Devil
made you do it. There's some witchcraft going on there. She's a witch.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know. Somebody's a witch.
Yeah, I wish I knew what,
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Because it would be nice to know what causes it so I could cause it in other people. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Maybe there's something to this witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're like, all right, with regard to phylio-caption caused by witchcraft, the remedies detailed in the preceding chapter, no, they weren't. No. Because this is the first fucking time phylio-caption has been used in this book, is this chapter. Mm-hmm. I know, I looked.
Mm-hmm.
may not inconveniently be applied here also. Wow. Why did you use a double negative to make a positive?
They're padding it for length. Come on.
I guess. Especially the exorcisms by sacred words which the bewitched person can himself use. Let him daily invoke the guardian angel deputed to him by God. Well, how the fuck do you know who your goddamn guardian angel is, motherfucker?
Mm-hmm.
Let him use confession and frequent the shrines of the saints, especially the Blessed Virgin, and without doubt he will be delivered. Yes, because when you go to confession and tell the priest that you're jerking off over this chick, the priest can blackmail you with that information. That's why confession exists.
Mm-hmm. But how abject are those strong men who, discarding their natural gifts and the armor of virtue, cease to defend themselves, whereas the girls themselves in their invincible frailty... What? Invincible frailty? Use those very rejected weapons to repel this kind of witchcraft. We will give one out of many examples in their praise. Okay, sure.
I mean, this almost sounds like the gal's going to bat her eyes and say, "Oh, I'm just a poor helpless waif. Give me your big peenie." But that's not what it's saying. I don't... I'm not going to dig into it deeper because I will have a stroke if I do. Mm-hmm. So we'll just read this next paragraph and, well, hopefully it gives us something to riff off of because we're certainly not going to illuminate things more.
No.
There was in a country village near Lindau in the Diocese of Constance a grown maid, fair to see, and of even more elegant behavior, at the sight of whom a certain man of loose principles, a cleric in sooth, but not a priest, was smitten with violent pangs of love. And being unable to conceal the wound in his heart any longer, I'm going to have to see if I can find that Wayne's World clip where he talks about, Clarice going and to the prison and the dude flings his man goo on her. Mm-hmm. And with fair words showed that he was in the net of the devil, beginning by venturing in words only to persuade the girl to grant him her love. She, perceiving by divine instinct his meaning, and being chaste in mind and body, bravely answered him, "Master, do not come to my house with such words, for modesty itself forbids." To this he replied, "Although you will not be persuaded by gentle words to love me, yet I promise you that soon you will be compelled by my deeds to love me."
Oh, this is getting creepy.
Just a wee bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now that man was considered a suspected enchanter and wizard. The maiden considered his words as but empty air, and until then felt in herself no spark of carnal love for him. But after a short time she began to have amorous thoughts. Perceiving this, and being inspired by God, she sought the protection of the Mother of Mercy and devoutly implored her to intercede with her son to help her. Anxious, moreover, she went on a pilgrimage to a hermitage, where there was a church miraculously consecrated in that diocese to the Mother of God. Yeah. How was that a miracle? There she confessed her sins so that no evil spirit could enter her, and after her prayers to the Mother of Pity, all the devil's machinations against her ceased, so that these evil crafts thenceforth never afflicted her. Now, one thing I have to point out, because it puts paid to a lot of the bullshit folks are spew about such times. Dude went to where she worked.
Mm-hmm.
She had a job.
Yep.
And this would have been in the 1400s, maybe the 1500s?
The workplace harassment's been around for a while, yeah?
No, but my point is, in that period of time, the incels say, oh, no, women just stayed home and made babies.
Mm-hmm.
No, motherfucker.
She was
Poor
working.
folks had jobs regardless of their gender.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's exploitable.
Yep.
Nonetheless, there are still some strong men cruelly enticed by witches to this sort of love, so that it would seem that they would never restrain themselves from their inordinate lust for them. Yet these often most manfully resisted the temptation of lewd and filthy enticements, and by the aforesaid defences overcame all the wiles of the devil. Okay. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Bet you he had a nap with his dad.
Yeah. Okay. And Lindau, I looked up, since most of us Merkins will have no clue as to where the fuck that might be, even if we do grasp the concept of it being in Germany, is in Bavaria.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Nothing bad ever came out of Bavaria.
One of my college roommates was from Germany, and he was from Bavaria. He was actually from wherever Wagner was born.
Okay.
Okay. Did you read Nonetheless, or is that mine?
I did.
Okay. A rich young man in the town of Innsbruck provides us with a noble pattern of this sort of struggle. He was so importuned by witches that it is hardly possible for pen to describe his strivings. I'm guessing you've never read Henry Miller or Anna East Nin.
That's it for this episode of the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes. It's also on Stitcher, and most of the episodes are on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter at tparkatheist, and it's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist. You can email me at trailerparkatheist@gmail.com. Show notes can be found at tparkatheist.blogspot.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to donate to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can also support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker.
The podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fosnots.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.